Welcome to Talk with Chi. I am Chioma Odolami, and today I've got amazing ladies. I've got Melanie Folkes-Meyers and Teresa Okansi, Jennifer Akins-Appiah. And today we'll be discussing, can women have it all? Can we have it all?
My name is Jennifer Akins-Appiah. I am a senior privacy professional and I also specialise in AI governance. I am married, I have 3 children, currently working in a digital first bank, and have been in the industry for about 15 years now.
Thank you. Thanks, Jennifer.
My name is Teresa Okansi. I'm a mother to 2 young boys, aged 5 and 8. Career-wise, I have skills in governance, risk assurance. I've sat on a few non-executive boards for housing. I've currently come from a policing sector role. I love what I do, and I try to always be positive and inclusive for all the things that I'm involved in. So, yeah.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Melanie Folkes-Meyers. I am an award-winning HR specialist. I run a HR consultancy, a leadership coach and a trainer.
Thank you. Thanks very much, ladies. So today we are talking all things, can we have it all? So we're going to start with the first question. So how do you think the definition of having it all, do you think that we can actually have it all as women? And how has your views changed from your 20s to now? You know, I'm not going to give away people's ages, but how has your views changed from your 20s to now, basically?
It's an interesting question. So I was trying to think back to my 20s to remind myself. I think having it all in my 20s was probably more about, it's probably more materialistic.
Mm-hmm.
I think it was more, can I make the money to buy the things, to take the trips, to do, it was more that, as opposed to, I wasn't thinking about balancing, I don't know, marriage and those kind of things and children, mainly because I definitely wasn't the kind of girl who was, some people are like, I knew what wedding dress I wanted. And I was not that girl. So I don't think I thought about it in that sense. In my sense, it was about me having the resources to do all the things that I wanted to do. I think now when I think about that having it all thing, I think it's very subjective. So it's what it means to you. So for me, it's staying in the moment in whatever I'm doing. So whether it's date night with my husband or hanging with the children or working for my clients, that I'm able to do that without that constant to-do list in the back of my head of all the other stuff. So I think that whole bit of having it all, I also think that bit of having it all is a bit of a trap for women, because they don't say, do men have it all?
Exactly.
But I do believe that the trick to balancing those things is not falling for the lie that you have to do it yourself. So I think the lie is, I have to, like in the Bible, you got the Proverbs 31 woman, right? And it's like, she gets up early and she makes sure everybody's dressed well and they're fed and everybody thinks her husband is wonderful. You have all of those things, and it's like, but if you really read into it, you see that she's making sure that the people who work for her are taken care of. She's not taking, so it's like she wakes up and makes sure that there's food for the women in her house, whatever. But actually I'm making sure my people are taken care of. So if you have an understanding of, yes, my being okay is in my business, I have my VA, I have the person who does my marketing, in my home, my children have chores and things that they do. I have a great husband who also takes care of the home, and we both work. So we both take care of the home. So if you delegate accordingly and you're not trying to do it all yourself, yes. If you fall for the lie of, yes, now I must get up at 2 a.m. and make sure everyone else is sorted, and then do my job, and then make sure everybody's taken care of, but everybody else gets to... In Jamaica, we say, you sit back and cock up your foot. No, honestly, then it doesn't work. But I think if you know, if you're utilising the help and asking for help and getting the assistance you need, it is possible.
Okay. And this then applies to you. How has your views changed from your 20s
I think
to now?
I think I would probably say in my 20s it was more of a vision,
Mm-hmm.
you know, like I'm going to do this, I'm going to be married, I'm going to have kids, and you know, and I think going to university sort of really opened my eyes to that, because prior to going to uni I always thought, oh, when I'm 23 I'm going to be married, but obviously I graduated at 21. I thought I can't be somebody's wife in 2 years, I haven't got a job. So I think in your 20s, I think you're putting things in place, you're setting, you know, you've got that vision and you're more fearless. But I think for my 40s, I would say that it's more of a reality.
Yeah.
And in that reality, there's a juggle, but I don't think people tell you about that. You only realise when you're doing it. So I think you can have it all in your 20s, and you probably do. Like, you might still be living at home and you've got a good job and you're getting paid and you're buying the clothes you want, but then you're still living in the house provided by your family. So
disposable income.
Yes,
You've got that disposable income.
But when you're in your 40s, you've really lived that life. You've got your own place, you've got a family, and you're trying to make sure everything is working just so that, you know, things can keep moving forward. So I think the reality of it hits you more in your 40s, but I don't think the preparation is, you don't really know that preparation until you're actually in it, I think.
Okay.
Yeah,
that's really
but
good.
you appreciate it more, I think, when you're in your 40s.
Well, you've changed, haven't you? Because at your 20s, you've just finished uni. For those of us that went to university, if you didn't go to university, you went travelling or you're working. So life is easy. You don't have kids, you don't have mortgage, you don't have bills, you don't have, I'm not saying responsibilities, but actually I am saying responsibilities. You don't have solid responsibilities. You do have some responsibilities, but you're not accountable for kids. They're not dependent on you. So your 20s, your views are going to be incredibly different to your 40s, I would imagine. So but thanks for that, Teresa. And Jennifer, what's your views?
I definitely agree with a lot of what the ladies had said before. I think in my 20s I was just head in the clouds. I didn't even really, if you asked me, can you have it all, I would have been like, what are you talking about? All I know is I've just come out of uni and all I'm trying to do is just get my LPC and I'm trying to get a training contract, and that was my focus. So in my mind, I just kind of felt like everything will kind of happen organically. So I didn't really have a plan. And then when I looked back, like through my 30s, I was like, oh, maybe I was supposed to have a plan. Maybe I was supposed to have a plan, because I'm looking around and people seem so secure in themselves, whereas I'm asking all the questions maybe they were asking in their 20s now. And then as I've grown older, I've just been like, okay, well, you know, I've everything that's happened, I feel like things have happened to me. I've not necessarily worked to a plan. And every time I felt like I had a plan, it maybe didn't go according to the way I wanted it to. And I think for me, like you said, it's quite subjective, isn't it? You know, what, you know, having it all looks like. I think as much as you want to, I just don't think you can without there being trade-offs. And those trade-offs, you have to decide like which battle you're going to pick, like which thing are you prepared to sacrifice?
What's going to drop?
Sleep, holidays, you know, maybe a particular salary or a particular, you know, profit margin that you're looking for, you know, where is that going to take you? Time with the family, you know, holidays maybe, or specific places you want to go to, where you want to live even, you know, the type of place you want to live in,
for your kids.
what your lifestyle looks like, you know, all of those things. Like you can, you know, it depends on what your role is, like the lady said. If your all is spending as much time with the family as possible, then you're probably going to have to sacrifice salary. You're probably going to have to sacrifice a lot of nice, luxurious stuff. Maybe, you know, unless you're married to a millionaire, that type of stuff. If you're having, you know, if you're a high performer and you want to fly high, you're going to sacrifice your time with the family.
Well, you're going to sacrifice your time, period.
Full stop.
You're not going to have any time if you want to be performing at work.
Absolutely.
You're not going to have any time to do anything else.
So I think it's important, you know, for the ladies that are of a younger age, that are coming up, I would always say, you know, think about it. Think about, you know, what your role is now, but don't be so stuck on that kind of being the same and remaining static. And don't think that you have to comparison is the thief of joy, isn't it? So
Yeah.
don't think it has to look like everybody else's. But I do feel like women, especially, you know, I guess maybe modern day thinking has kind of sold us a lie a little bit about, you know, having it all and what that looks like, and, you know, the fact that we have to maintain a home, we have to do this, we have to do this, and we have to bring in money, and we have to look great, and we have to be going to the gym, and we have to be here, there, and this and that.
We've been ripped off.
We've been ripped off. Whereas through the ages, obviously, the more independence we've gained, the more we can leave a legacy, as opposed to us working to somebody else's legacy.
Yeah.
The more that has kind of sheathed, the more, or we've put on that kind of expectation. I think the more we're expected to do, and I just think, I don't know, we still don't have liberty in the way that maybe we thought we would as women. So.
But do you think it's a trap though? Because obviously if somebody say to me, do you have it all? And I'm like, what do you mean? Because obviously it's subjective, as you've mentioned, and is how you define all, really. Because some people, having it all could be your health. Because if you don't have your health, you can't work, you can't do things. To some people it's financial, isn't it, really? And to some others it might just be like just existing, just having life, or living life. So it just all depends on how you define all, really.
Agreed.
So do you think it's a trap that women are often, you know, put in this box, do you have it all? And why, you know, Mel, you mentioned it earlier, why do we not answer that question to men?
Yeah, no, I think in that sense, I think there is a bit of that whole bit of this is what the perfect woman is
supposed to look like,
and I think, but as I said, I think it's that whole bit of, you do need to ask someone when they say to you, do you have it all? What does that mean? What are you looking for? What is your expectation? So definitely, like, for me, it's important that I've got 2 daughters, so I want them to see that, like, marry well. You know, like
marry well, I like
exactly that. But it is that point. It's like, if you're, you know, I do some stuff with the young women at church, right? And it's like, you have this whole desire to be married and you're looking at the Instagram beauty of it, and I'm like, okay, fine, but actually it's hard work. So you have to have an understanding of what questions are you asking these men you're dating. How are you going, how is, like, you know, there were some people who are like, well, I've said I want to be a stay-at-home mum, and it's like, fine, but then have an expectation of, there's an expectation of those things. I know me, I'd be bored out of, like, I love my children, but no. So I think it is that bit of having an understanding of what is important to you and how are you going to do those things. When I started my business, my first daughter was 1, then I had my second daughter, and for me a lot of it was, I didn't want to be paying someone a lot of money to be seeing my child's first steps, and I don't do that. So I balanced my business in a way that meant I was able to do the work I loved and the money I needed to, but I was still able to be present with them. And as I've got older, it's opened up, like, my capacity has broadened to the point where, you know, now my youngest will start secondary school in September. I have no more school runs. You know, so now it's like,
of school runs.
I'm free of school runs, and they have an independence, which means that they can get off in the morning on their own, and they can come back, which has opened it up for me to be able to do more and more. But at each stage, I've had to say my all means that they're my focus. And then now it's like, well, I can be more of my focus. It means that I've done more solo trips, I've gone off, and, you know, all of those things I'm able to do now. And I think, as you said, it's that bit of, don't be rigid and this is the thing and this is always going to be the thing, because it changes over periods depending on what's happening,
your situation
in your life. So whether it's getting married or having children, or when your parents get older and they need your support, all of those things change what your priority is. So I do think that whole bit of, I'm going to be able to juggle all the things and have all the things in my head is sold as a bit of a lie, because nobody ever says to a man, how are you juggling being a husband and a parent and how do you find time to go to the gym or do whatever you need to do? Are you drinking enough water? You know, that you don't have all of those lists of things. So I do think in that sense it's quite an old school patriarch way of looking at things.
Yeah, definitely.
But I think if I look out to like my friends and my generation, all of us are having the same conversations. It's impossible. Well, you know, like you said, unless you marry a millionaire, it's impossible for one income to sustain a family, right?
These days, not at all.
So this is the point. So both of you will be working, and you will have grandparents helping with childcare and siblings, and you have all of these different elements going on. So I just think maybe it needs to be rescoped, because I think those days of, you know, one income and
a woman staying at home and the man going to work and then coming home and then the house is all nice and clean and the kids look all clean and tidy.
They've never already had their dinner. And what was that whole thing? And you're handing them their little aperitif before dinner.
Those days have gone. But no, that's really great. Thank you, Mel, and thanks, Teresa and Jennifer. Obviously, I feel like having it all could be associated with your job, socio-economic as well. So do you think women that are in high-powered jobs, sorry to speak, have it all? Or do you think it really does depend?
Yeah, that's an interesting question, actually, because I feel, and I'm learning as I get to certain levels, that women that are at that level, quite a few that I've come across, I feel like there's certain things that they've had to either learn to do or give up, and it almost makes them a lot more alpha, right? A lot more alpha, in order to get there, and so at times I kind of look at where they've got to, and I think to myself, would I want to be like that in order to have what they have? And sometimes I think as well, these are people that are sometimes coming in quite early. If you look to their social circles, they haven't been seen in their social circles by friends or by anyone for a very long time, or they always have to decline invites because either, you know, they just have to catch up on sleep, or they have to catch up on looking after themselves, and so because they work so hard. And also I feel as well there's the politics that comes with where they're at times. There's a lot that they have to give in whatever they're doing in terms of their industry or their business, or you know. And I don't know if you've recently come across it, but Emma Grede recently, she recently started a tour, and she wrote a book, and she's been doing quite a few podcasts and quite a few interviews, which have gotten kind of social media and so social, kind of like social circles, talking a lot and debating about trade-offs, which is what I talked about before. Because one of the things that my friend, who's a therapist, talked about was she seems to be happy with only giving her children a little bit of her time and her effort, because she's this high-powered woman who's ran very, you know, successful businesses, etc. And I've listened to some of the book, halfway through so far, and she does go into it. You've learned a bit about her background, and you understand that actually it's because her mum was a single mum. She was left home quite a lot. She became a mum to her three younger siblings, and so it kind of fueled the mindset of, this is what I have to do, and
not
it didn't
to be
harm
like my
me.
mum.
It didn't. Well, she recognizes there were some harms done, but she feels like, well, this is what I've seen, this is what I know, and this is what I can give. And I feel like to some extent, maybe people at that level, for them, that's their understanding of what is all. Does that make sense?
Yes.
And so for them, it's like, for them, that's normal. It's normal to operate in that way. And actually, where she made up for the shortfall in her life back then was her being successful in terms of status and in terms of how much she was able to make and therefore how much she was able to give, maybe materially, but for her, that gave her some sort of mental assurance, exactly, that maybe she didn't get from her mother. But as far as she was concerned, you know, in her life now, she knows she doesn't have it all in that sense, but she has what she defines as all.
People have been talking about, well, she, as you said, married well.
She married,
so that's a completely different thing. You can still be successful, maybe your husband isn't as successful, and there is trade-off.
Different argument.
The lifestyle she's leading is completely different.
Absolutely.
She's got a husband, and her mother was on her own.
Yes.
And then 2, she's also got her career.
Yes.
The thing I would say about that, because I sometimes watch rich family, poor family. And I think you tend to see when they do the swap over, living on each other's incomes, the family who have the most money, they actually get to, when they swap over to, you know, a lower income household, they actually get to spend time together, have dinner together. And the takeaway from that always is, now we've had this week together, we're going to do more things together. Whereas the ones who get that money, it doesn't change. They're afforded things that they couldn't probably do, but they still have that unit. And I think, yes, it is wonderful to have money and to do all those things, but I think when sometimes it's about having those core values, so you can have it all, but you know, missing those moments, as Emma said, she's there for their birthdays, but she's only going to be with them 3 hours a day. That's fine. But you know, when you're a child and there's a school play and you're looking in the audience to see your mum, and if she's not there, they remember that.
They do, no matter how many times you've gone before. The one time you don't go, it becomes a big deal.
So you know, it is wonderful to have this money and to have this lifestyle, but something we'll give, and we're juggling enough balls as it is. So I think, you know, family and those values, those are the things that you cannot actually put a price on. So I think those are the things that you should, you know, we always have to hold on to, really.
I agree 100%. Thank you. Thanks for that, Teresa.
No, and I think it's that thing, isn't it? It's that, and I think we all fall foul of it to a certain extent. There's things that you didn't have growing up that you want to make sure your children have, but also you have to remember not to throw the baby out the bathwater, right? So you kind of have to balance those. You have to balance those two things. And I definitely get it from I was raised by a single parent, and so for me there's my 2 sisters are 9 and 11 years younger than me, so I was looking after them. I was picking up from school, I was doing those things, and so really weirdly my sisters had children before I did, because I knew what the sacrifice meant, and I knew where I wanted to be before I had children. So for me that was important. It was more important to establish myself before I had children, because I knew the sacrifice. So I knew that I wanted to travel. I knew that I wanted to do things. My girls are 13 and 11. We've been married 22 years. So we had the opportunity to do things, which meant that when they came, I didn't feel like I was missing out. But also my career was established enough that I could take a bit of a step back. And as I said, I was able to still earn money, but I could spend that time with them. And I knew it was only, you know, the beauty of, I don't know, being in HR, as you know, it's basically the first 5 years. Once they're in full-time school, you suddenly you're free.
Makes it easier.
Yeah, it makes it a lot easier. So it was like, okay, fine, I need to make a sacrifice for this period of time, because I wanted them to have the values, and I wanted us to, like, I always find it interesting when other people are around us and they're like, it's so cool that you guys sit around the table for dinner every day. And I'm like, you don't do that? Okay, fine. And I definitely still have that thing where I'll come down and we'll have dinner, and then I might have to go back up to the office to do some bits. But that's okay, because still, once they've done their chores and have done the washing up and have done whatever and they had their bath, then they're like, I want to have a cuddle, I want to have a chat, then they know, okay, mum's going to shut down the laptop. And that's not an everyday thing. It's I just need to get this done to prep me for the next day. So I understand where she's coming from, and like you said, there is that trauma.
There's trauma there. She needs to deal with that,
because she's saying I'm okay, that I know that I'm giving them some trauma, but they're still having better than I had. Do you see what I mean? It's like in her mind, she's like, they're getting more than I had. So it's okay. It's okay, as opposed to at some point those children are going to be like, oh yeah, we had all of the material things, but we didn't necessarily. But we didn't have the.
They're going to be so resentful of her.
Well, the thing is, the way she positioned it, which I kind of feel like there's almost a denial that there's even going to be like some level of trauma handed down. I feel like regardless of what you do as a parent anyway, your children will still be able to turn around at some point and say, oh yeah, this was missing, or I didn't get this, and you know, something will pop up. But I think from her perspective, it was almost like, as I was listening, I was kind of not hearing, they're probably not going to get this or not going to get that, or this is how they're going to grow up and this is how it's going to affect them. I didn't hear that. Instead, what I heard was more of a, you know, those 3 hours, they're going to get the best of me. You know, if you're around your child all of the time, how good of a time, what quality time are they actually getting? If for the whole time that you're with them, you're just doing the same thing and it's kind of repetitive and blah, blah, blah. Like, you know, you become too uber focused on certain things. So she gave an example of a parent who was just like so concerned with every key ingredients in the child's lunchbox. And she was thinking, or she was saying, from that perspective, it was just too focused on one thing, when it would be better just to have fun in that time, or to make use of that time. And so from my perspective, I didn't really even hear an acknowledgement that potentially there could be some harm done from her lack of presence.
But it sounds like time is money in her
she
thing.
Time is money.
It's cutting off from something else which affords the lifestyle that they have, or the things that she needs to do.
Yes.
So as you said about that lunchbox example, she can't do that.
She can't do that.
Eating into
something else. But she also kind of made the point of, is that even healthy? That was to focus on that.
The smaller things.
Oh, this has got gluten, this has got wheat, this has got this has got that. You know, and so therefore it can't. And she was like, well, the child probably feels like the lunchbox is really boring and is not going to eat it anyway, kind of thing. So it's.
But the point is you don't. But the point is you don't know. So if that child has intolerances, then you have to put that focus in.
Yeah.
But also it's. Like for me, there are little things. I know she's like, oh, it's great if you do fun things with your children in my 3 hours. But actually, some of the cool memories, some of the best stuff isn't we went to, you know, Disneyland or whatever. Sometimes the thing is
spontaneous.
It's that spontaneous thing of that like for me, I love the conversations I have when I walk my 11-year-old to school. It can be from the sublime to the ridiculous, right? But she's telling me about this book or this story or her imagination, and it's like, this is great. Or sometimes she'll say a joke and I'm like, oh, that's really funny, you need to remember to tell your dad that. So it's not necessarily that. Or yes, you're in the kitchen making breakfast, but while you're making breakfast and you're buttering the toast or whatever you might be doing, you're having it's just those natural those natural interactions. It doesn't always have to be, let's do this big amazing things. We have conversational cards that sometimes we use around the table, but you don't use them sometimes it's just,
there doesn't always have to be a purpose, does there? Sometimes that's the whole point.
Let's just be. And I think that's the thing, that ability to, like, before we started the podcast we were talking and I was saying about my girls getting in, you know, I went to the bathroom and I came back and my 11-year-old was now in the bed next to her dad. I'm like, why are you hearing my spot so quickly? But it's that bit, like, and the two of them were there, they both had their tablets, they both had headphones on, they both, but
it's the presence.
It's the presence. It's the fact that I can come and do that.
Money can't buy that.
And that's what, and that's the thing that she's missing. So
money can't buy those things. But no, thank you so much. That was very, very useful. I just love these conversations. Okay, so the next question I really want to ask you guys is, do you think that social media has contributed to women thinking that they need to have it all? So when I look on TikTok, when I look on Instagram and Facebook, and there's this kind of a facade that people put on social media, like, I've got it all, and, you know, I've got this amazing house and car and this and that. So do you think that has contributed to women thinking that they need to have it all?
Definitely. I think it has. But from me personally, I'm from a generation that was before the internet, so I know when to kind of switch it off. You know, this isn't real life. So, you know, sometimes you do see things and wish, oh, I wish my house looked like that. But the reality is I wasn't raised that way. So I think for my generation, we know to turn it off and not to take it too. But for the younger ones or the ones coming in, this is everything that they want. I was even thinking about, you know, when I owned a Gucci bag and things in my younger days. But now younger people are wearing design bags so early, the things that the makeup and everything, because they're seeing this and they're thinking, this is real life. I have to keep to this standard. Whereas I think we're still fine to have a bag from somewhere else, maybe. It's not all about that. So I think that hasn't helped, but for me, I think I know when to switch it off and not take that. But I also think it comes down to your family values and how you were raised and the grounding, because, a lot of people who are making money for influencing, they're there to do a job. This is not really their real life. It's not their real life.
This is their job. This is how they make their living, basically. So if somebody follows that kind of thinking, I can have my life like this, honey, they don't even live like that on an average day. It's just a facade, isn't it? It's a facade.
And I think that's the thing, because so much of the stuff, so much of the things that they get also, they are gifted.
They're gifted,
So they get gifted all of these amazing things. So obviously you're like, oh, this, they're living this life, but they haven't had to work for it or do any of those things. And like some of the stuff that I do for running, sometimes gifted things. And people are like, oh, and I'm like, yeah, I know it does cost a lot of money. And I'll be really honest, I was gifted those trainers, that outfit, that thing, because you have to be honest about it. And there are definitely people that I look at and I do a day in the life and I'm like, okay, you didn't get up. I know you didn't get up looking like that. I mean, you look wonderful, darling, but you really
didn't buy that.
And you didn't, but you didn't wait. Like your hair and your face, everything is. You did not. That's not how you would normally walk into the bathroom. You're showing me yourself in the.
No, that's exactly.
There's been a whole production happening even before the camera started.
You didn't just hit your bathroom like that. It's not how it happened.
The pre-show before the show.
Exactly, and I think. Because I've got a few friends who are literally like, you should really have a GoPro on you one day just for people to see all the things. I was like, no. I think they'd be very bored at all the different things I'm doing. In between my meetings when I run downstairs and turn the washing machine on and go back up. But I think that sometimes there is that need to show that reality of nobody when I wake up and I've got my bonnet on or my headscarf and like that's not how I look in the morning. When I pitch up at the gym, I do not look like that. So it is that. I think there is that whole piece of it. But I do think, like you said, I think for us, that's not reality of life. I think when you were younger, like my daughters will say, they'll start talking about Sephora, and I'm like, sorry. Do you know like what? No, we're not. That's not. You can have the same things that I had. We can. And it's obviously we've learnt. So it's like now they have sunscreen and they're moisturised and whatever. But I'm like, don't get over yourself. You don't need any of those things. You do not need a serum. You do not need eye cream. You do not need you need none of these things. And every now and again I'll be like, let's do a manicure or pedicure, or let's do a face mask or whatever, because it's good to take care of your skin. But don't be looking at these people. I'm not spending £100 on face stuff for a teenager.
Cocoa butter, mate, sorry.
Like it's like skincare and all of that type of stuff.
So it's like all of those things they see and they think that they need it. I'm like, you don't need any of those things. So I do think you're right. It's the younger generation look at it, but the moment they move out of home and now and have a job and now need to pay rent and council tax and water rates and gas and electric, and suddenly they'll realise this is not real. It's not reality.
It's for nothing.
But I think social media in general and society in general has a lot to answer for, because again, when I was growing up, a lot of the messaging that we get now about how you have to look and the things that you have to do, the things that need to occupy your time, it seems to have increased by 10 or even maybe by 100. And it kind of feels like the messaging that we would have gotten from home is now being given to our children through media,
social media,
which is shaping some of their ideals and some of their perspective on what they bring to the table, what they bring to the world, how they should represent, how they should show up. And it's quite scary because, like you say, in terms of how much social media has had to play in setting that trap for us, I think it's quite high. But then also the other day I was having a conversation with my friend. I had a conversation with my friend and I said, the other trap has been shame. Right, because I think when we talk about having it all, sometimes maybe our aunts, our mothers had kind of told us what we should be doing or what we should be bringing to our marriage or what we should be doing in the workplace and all of these type of things. And the idea of, I better do it because it looks good in this way or it looks good to these people, has kind of almost shaped how we should be thinking about these things in a way. Thoughts, absolutely. And so I think shame and social media, the two go hand in hand. The reason why we're doing it is because we don't want to look bad in front of others. And I think that's a big deal as well, for me. So yeah.
No, that's really good. Thanks ladies. And my final question, how do we prepare the younger generation so that they don't think that they need to have it all, they need to, look at somebody on social media, have the amazing house, have the fantastic holidays with their girls, or their, what is it called, vacation, all that kind of things. How do we prepare the younger generation?
Starts at home, the values, I think, because, you can see what you can see online, but I think we just have to keep them grounded, help them build their characters up, keep pouring in that good stuff and the affirmations and things, because we kind of just, I don't think I grew up with affirmations, but my parents were very good, and the most important thing was always being a good person. It's not about the money, it's about how you are as a person, because that lasts, and what people say about you is the most important thing. So I think, social media is there, but we have to kind of, for me again, the point that I've made previously, that's not real life. So as long as they know that, and you shouldn't be judged by what's not real. The people who really have your back are those around you in your circle. So I think those are the things that we kind of need to keep channeling, I think, so our kids know, the young people. But it is a tough world, but I think as long as we continue to give them those values at home, and know what they're doing as well, keep that communication channels, like you said, the conversations, because sometimes it's not even the planned conversations, it's the little things, that when they say things, you find out things about them. So it's just that, and I think, and as parents, we shouldn't, be scared to speak to one another. Back in the day, if you were, somebody was walking or they'd done something wrong, somebody say, "I'll tell your mum." You could get involved.
Honestly?
I mean, it's different now. You can't just go around,
No, you can't do that. No, you can't do that.
Do you see what I mean? We need, I think, more of that community vibe back. There's so many traditions, culturally, that we have, that good stuff that our kids can still let them be proud of those things, I think, So I think that's kind of what I would say, how we can prepare them. But it's not real. It's a part of your life, but it's not your life.
So it's laying those foundations from home and just making sure that's embedded in their mindset as well, isn't it?
No one wants to be no one wants to be left out. Do you understand? But at the same time, know where you're coming from, know where you're going. But this is just a part of the natural, cycle.
This is social media,
and this is life,
and this is real life. There's a difference between the two. So just making sure that they know the difference between the two. And the same to you, Mel.
No, I think it is that education piece for them to understand, like I said, even like this is the budget, this is the them having an understanding of, okay, so this is the home and this is the things that you have. And I talk to the girls a lot, so sometimes when I am away for work, there is very much a bit of a, but also you have to understand that me and Daddy work so that you've got the roof over your head, you've got your rooms, you've got your stuff, when you ask for things you can have it, but also it's like, well, this is how you get the holidays, and this is, so that they can see it's not just an influencer life, that you can see, we work hard for these things, and this is the things that we do for you to have the things that you need. And also for me, that's also a big part of them having the chores in the house as well, so they can see, all right, now you need to, because I'm not going in anyone's room to take any dirty clothes or anything, right? So your clothes need to, and this is how the washing machine, this is how it works, and you need to do the washing up, and you need to, and this is how you cook the meals, and so that they can see all of these things require, it requires time, it requires understanding, you have to do it, so they have an understanding of, it's not just, like in our house we say we're a team, right? So my whole thing is, if you use something, wash it up. If you put, like, I wouldn't go in my kitchen and not know that you've done anything. If I can go in and see that you've done, because when I go in to now cook dinner, now I've got to, so
clean up and all that stuff.
And so it's setting the standard of all of those things, so they have an understanding of this is what life is really like. You don't just get up in the morning and go to the shower and put on your clothes, and suddenly breakfast is magically there, and then you go and you leave your plate, so it's having that understanding of this is what life is like. And also we're working together, so if you do this, then okay, rather than me coming home after dropping you to school and now spending half an hour putting the house back before I can work, I can work. My working is bringing in money that's doing anything. So it's just giving them those little examples and them having an understanding. And so now my daughter might message me like on a Friday when they there's a very quick turnaround from when they get home and when they need to go to performing arts, and she might say to me, "Oh mummy, do you want me to pick up the snacks from the shop?" Because she's got her Monzo card, and then I can see when she's used that card, and then she'll do that. And then
this is your 13-year-old.
This is my 13-year-old, so then I can put money, and I might be like, "I've put money on the card. Can you go to Sainsbury's and go and get so and so?" And she'll go and do that. And it's all of those little bits, so they understand. Well, that's helping me. So I'm in a meeting. You go and pick this up, and then then I can say, right, girls, you've got 15 minutes. Like, grab a snack, change your clothes. Let's get in the car. Let me drop you. It's them having that understanding of all of
you're
those
laying
things.
a foundation as well, so because that foundation is being embedded, like with my son Josiah as well. We don't have a corner shop where we live, but where we used to live, there was a corner shop. And, my husband and I would say, go to the corner shop. And we were literally watching through the window. You just want to make sure he's okay. So you go to the corner shop and you'll get things. But you're teaching him things because we used to do that when we were kids. Parents send you to the corner shop. You go and get milk, eggs, whatever they needed.
I used to get sent to the market. So
and you have to do those things because otherwise they're not going to know. And then you want kids that are prepared for, when they go to uni, they know how to cook. I met people at uni that couldn't even wash up plates, and I'm just what's going on? Like, what's going on here? So I think, just laying those foundation is very, very important. It's crucial. Okay, and you, Jennifer?
I think building their character internally, because I think we're in a world now where it feels like everyone is almost being built to think the same or act the same way, and I think you need to be able to build up your child for them to be able to realize who they are. I think those things that you mentioned, ladies, were incredibly helpful, and it will help to shape them. But I think them learning resilience, them learning tolerance, them learning some of those key soft skills as well that perhaps we're not seeing in some of our youth these days. Grace, being kind and being loving and all of those things and being patient. I think, and those are some of the things that I'm trying to teach my children, and even just reasoning, problem solving, not doing everything for them so that they start to think about and be creative about how they're going to be able to solve particular things, and teaching them that self-care is not always about just lying in a bath or whatever. Sometimes it's actually about reading a book, not just fictional books but like non-fiction and what they can get out of that. So for me, a lot of character building stuff, and I think it probably is because I feel like maybe that was some of the things that I lacked when I was younger, or I wanted more of, and I felt like those are the things that I was concentrating on when I was in my 20s. That's why I didn't have a plan, because I was just trying to fill myself up a bit more, and I want my children to learn to develop to do those things themselves. And so them starting now just means that I'm more reassured that when they step out into the world by themselves, they are capable.
They're ready.
They are capable. And no one's going to tell them who they are, because they already have their identity, right? So for me, I think that's very important, because then when they're fed lies on social media, they know, no, that's not true. That's just not reality, And for me, those are key. Those are key in our children, feeling that level of independence, feeling confident and feeling self-assured. So,
Thank you. And I'm going to go from Jennifer, because you just spoke. Do you think women can have it all? Based on the discussion that we just had, do you think we can all have it all? Do you think you can have it all? Or do you still feel like it's subjective?
I think it's very subjective.
Okay.
I think it's very subjective, and I think it's a myth, this all thing. I think it's just a myth, and I think when you think subjectively about what your all is, there's still some things that you feel like, I wish. That's what I think anyway.
Okay, thank you. Thanks, Jennifer. Teresa, what do you think? Do you think women can have it all?
I think it depends what season you are at your life. And as you said previously, if health is your all, that's your all. So it depends where you are, but something will have to give. But you understand that, and you might have your all at that time,
yeah.
in order for that, and your all can change.
Yeah, no,
so
thank you. No, that's really, no, I think that's really, really powerful.
Yeah.
I'm going to come to you, Mel. Thank you.
Yeah, I think I agree with what the lady said is that, one, it's subjective, and it is very much seasonal. It's what it means to you. So I think it's possible, but you have to know what it means to you, and it's not based on anybody else. And I think sometimes that's the thing is that we can be swayed by our circle to think, oh, you know, they're doing this thing, so this is the thing that means having it all. But actually, for each and every individual, it's different. I definitely have, like, I've got friends who I remember before they were married, and I was married and I had children, and they were like, "Is your washing machine ever off?" If you, if you know
that question.
Yeah, exactly. No. And you know those kind of things, and then now they're married and they've got children. And they're like,
they understand.
I get it.
And I think that's the thing is that you kind of have to be, you have to be in the place, in the place where you're at. I think that thing that you were saying about teaching your children like resilience and things like that. I think because of the way I was raised, I had that when I went to university. There was no concern that I couldn't cook, that I couldn't clean, that I couldn't do any of those things. And so there was the assurance of, like, off you go, and we're not worried, we're not concerned about you. But it then meant I was very focused on what I wanted to study, very focused on what I wanted in my career, very focused on, I wasn't letting somebody's dusty son distract me from what I wanted. Somebody's dusty son to distract me from what I wanted.
That's my quote for the day.
But it was
dust-free man only.
Exactly. Need to get a t-shirt thing. But it was that thing of me knowing what I wanted to do and knowing where I wanted to be. And so for me, that's always been the importance. I know where I want to be and I know what I want to do, and so I'm going to work out how I'm going to get there and how I'm going to balance it. But I think not everybody's like that, and so it is about instilling those things, and it is about making sure that you know what you want. And I think so for me, I think it is possible to have it all, but it's your all. So what my all is and what your, each of them will be completely different.
No, thank you, thanks very much. So can women have it all? Do we think as women we can have it all? We've heard the ladies speak about what they think having it all means to them, and if I'm honest, I think is subjective. It's not just something that, you would say to somebody, do you have it all? I think it depends how you define having it all. Having it all might be the perfect job. Having it all might be the perfect house. Having it all might be the perfect health. So it depends what all means to you. So to me, having it all is having my family, having my kids, my husband, making sure that they're okay. It doesn't mean that, I have to have the perfect job. Yes, I love my job. I like what I do. But, to some people, they may not like their job. So I think having it all has to be subjective. And we need to stop asking women, do you have it all? Because we don't ask those questions to men. So we need to ensure that women are not being asked, do you have it all? Because men are not being asked those questions. So thank you very much for listening to Talk with Chi. I hope you tune in next week when we talk about being single and searching for a perfect guy. Thank you.